What is up, YouTube? Troken here. Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video it is Ahri Players Unite. That is right, I'm going over the deck list that I'm bringing to my personal Summoner Skirmish this weekend. I figured it'd be really good since I do play Ahri to share everything I've learned about playing the deck throughout the Nexus nights, also like on live stream and Tabletop Simulator. And I've constructed a very cohesive, very well thought out Ahri deck that is really good against the spread of the matchups. So we're just going to do an in-depth dive, and also do not forget to register your deck with the registration sheets, which I'll show you how to do in this video. But before we get into it, if you haven't already, please subscribe. We do deck lists, we do card reveals, we do product opening, live streams with Tabletop Simulator. So if you're looking for a channel all things Riftbound, this is the one for you. So let's get straight into it. I love Ahri, guys. I really like Ahri. I think it is a very well-balanced deck. I think it is very strong, and I think it has a good matchup spread. You know, I've beat Kaisas, I've beat Teemos, I've beat some Victors. Oddly enough, the worst matchup for us is actually really aggressive decks and Jinx, right? I've lost a couple times, but I've tailored the deck list after those losses to make up for that matchup. So obviously we'll just go through start to finish, right? R8 Nine-Tailed Fox, very strong legend ability. A lot of people struggle with the legend ability because they forget about it, right? And then since it is a Summoner Skirmish and it is you know, we're playing for a bye for the regionals, right? You know, it's very important to get that -1 on everything, because you know it really affects the showdowns a lot. Like, it's just a strong legend ability. It is static. You don't have to commit to anything. It just always happens, which feels very good. The rune split will be even 6/6. I was leaning towards 7 Mind and 5 Calm runes. However, I am running like 3 Thousand-Tailed Watchers, and you know it doesn't really. With the accelerate cost, I want to keep it at 6/6 because I need those blue runes for it. And also we're teching in 1 singularity for certain matchups, which we'll get to in a second. But starting off with the most important part are the battlefields. All right, so Grove of the God Willowed, extremely important. We generally get a bunch of our points holding, right? And we've seen through the game, card advantage is king, right? So if you can really hone down on battle tricks with your on guards, with your stupefies, charming things in with your disciplines and your smoke screens, right? Then you should be able to easily draw cards for holding as much as possible. Really putting pressure and making your opponent make those decisions to go into a battlefield, especially with our chosen champion, where basically we're -3 in one thing. So -2 from the Ahri Inquisitive and -1 from the legend ability, right? So it makes things awkward for them, right? Generally, it is good to have one unit onto a battlefield. You know, if you do need a little bit of fortification and trying to mitigate some of that damage with something with like the Electron Yordle, which makes things very awkward for our opponent because of the tank ability, then by all means you can double down on a battlefield, right? Especially on Grove of the God Willowed, just to make sure we get that extra card draw. And yeah, extremely strong battlefield for Ahri. As soon as we get a foothold on something, it is very difficult for your opponent to take it back from us, or to conquer that battlefield, because we do have the static legend ability, and we have you know, battle tricks with on guards and stupefies and disciplines and stuff like that. The next battlefield is the Dreaming Tree, obviously. Card draw, right? So the Dream Tree is when a player chooses a friendly unit here with the spell for the first time each turn, they draw one. Okay, yes, it does help our opponent, right? It's really bad against Kaisa, so if you have a matchup against Kaisa, don't pick this one generally, right? Because they target down a lot of things with retreats and stuff, cleaves as well, right? So they will get some of that card draw. So I would suggest picking this if it goes into the third game at the very end. But generally, you know, we're running cards like Stupefy on guards, even our retreats will target, we'll hit it, disciplines, you know. And sometimes, honestly, don't be afraid to pull the trigger when you're holding on a battlefield and you're getting down like pretty low on your hand size, right? if you want to react to something on your opponent's turn, hit a Stupefy on your Ahri or something. Why not? You know, drawing 2 to get that tempo, and then when it switches back to your turn, you're drawing another card, essentially drawing 3 between their turn and your turn. Really strong, right? So if you're low on cards, don't feel bad trying to pull the trigger on stupefying your own unit on the Dreaming Tree, just because it's, you know, card advantage is king, like I've said before. Moving on to the last battlefield, which is a battlefield I actually like to pick second, right, is Trifarian War Camp. And I think a lot of people are like iffy on this battlefield, but just because of our legend ability, right, this basically reads your units get +1, right? And it cancels out the +1 for your opponent. So really good for holding, right? Yordle becomes a 3-might unit with tank, helps mitigate a lot of things. Ahri also becomes a 4-might unit. So it doesn't get hit by something like Falling Star. So really good for those Kaisa matchups, right? And it punishes your opponent as well. It's actually super good. Really cool battlefield for Ahri. Even if you're just going in with 1 or 2 units, it's completely fine because we have those battle tricks and also something like Smokescreen to really punish our opponents. So going further into the main deck, we are only running 1 Ahri Inquisitive. That's the only thing you need. Right, protect this as much as often. Sometimes it's a great turn 2, right? Or sorry, if it's your first turn, if you're going second, you can play this right away, right? That's a lot of pressure. That's really good. Generally, the only things you have to worry about are Hex Tech Rays and those Kaisa and or Jinx and or Darius doesn't really run it, honestly, but yeah. That's the only thing we would have to worry about, but it's very safe on Trifarian War Camp if that's your chosen battlefield. We do run the 1 retreat to kind of help save the Ahri, as people will try and punish that thing as much as possible. However, remember, if it does get removed, it's not the end of the world. We have plenty of other things to kind of help it out, but generally, you don't want to rush this out too fast, right? If you have like no other choice and you just need to develop your base on your if you're going second for your first turn, then play it, you know. But generally we want to be playing other things like our Ravenbloom Students or Stalwart Poros, something to get into a battlefield, and then maybe pop this down with that as well, and then it just creates a lot of awkwardness, a lot of weird damage calculating for our opponent. So that's why I think Ahri is incredibly strong, is because, especially with like something like Ravenbloom, you know, we're minusing things, right? Ravenbloom is gaining might every time we play a spell. These spells in itself help it gain might. Like even an On Guard on a Ravenbloom student is a 5-might unit. Then they have to take into consideration the -1 from the legend ability. So we're really good at holding, right? Almost so much as Master Yi, you know, because you know, Master Yi obviously gets the +2 for defending alone. However, you know, the fact that we can double down on some units and they still get that -1, I think Ahri's just like a little better, honestly. And I've played tons of Ahri. She's my main deck. I can navigate the decks like pretty well. We do like fall short with some like aggro matchups, but it's okay because with Summoner Skirmish will be best of 3, and that's why we sideboard, right? So going further into the main deck, obviously 3 Defies. We're a control deck. We hold, right? Defy hits 65% of the spells in the game so far, and it's incredibly strong. And, you know, 1 power, it just hits 4 energy and a power spells. You know, it's crazy. You know, it stops things like Super Mega Death Rocket. It stops so many things. It's just ridiculous, right? And honestly, if there's some things that you just don't want, or something that'll help your opponent gain some tempo with some spells, if they're going to win the Conquer or the Showdown, definitely run 3 Defies. Just basic. This is a basic 3 add-in. Stupefy is really good. -1, essentially -2, you know, in a showdown because of our legend ability. That is huge, right? This thing can actually like really hurt Ravenbloom students from getting too big. And also reaction speed, very strong. And of course the card draw is really important. Remember, don't draw your card too fast. Wait for the stack to resolve, because that's the only way you can actually draw the card. And also take notice, right, if your opponent is playing a Stupefy and drawing a card right away, and, you know, that's not allowed unless the stack resolves. So make sure they do that, because there are some instances where an opponent of mine has played Stupefy, drawn a card, I've defied it or something, and I missed that the fact that they draw the card, and they're using that card to further the chain, and that just doesn't work. That's not the way it works. So keep out on the rules, very important. Also, it is really important to learn your reflexive triggers and how they work, which we'll get into just a second with Retreat. On guard, really strong, like I said before. With Ravenbloom Student, it helps it become a 5 might unit. If Ahri's sitting alone, the fact that we can +2 something if a unit of ours is alone on a battlefield, and they -1 from our legend ability, incredibly strong. Like I said, this is all math, right? So as long as you can get over those breakpoints in terms of spell removal and conquer removal or unit removal, or just like units moving in, yeah, we'll come out ahead. On guard's really strong, and the fact that it's only 1, incredible. Retreat. So this thing is incredibly important. Try not to overcommit too much when you're playing against Kaisa, solely because Retreat is actually the one card that really hurts Ichthian Rain and or Falling Star. More so in Falling Star. So when they're playing Falling Star, react to it with a Retreat, right? Because as Falling Star resolves, then the 2 triggers become on the stack for Falling Star, right? And then they must choose units, even their own, right? So if you can get a unit and save a unit and punish them by having them have to target down something, one of their own, then by all means do so. Don't wait for the reflexive triggers to choose, right, your units, because then as soon as you respond with a retreat to the reflexive trigger, it kind of just fizzles away, right, because that target is chosen. So do it before. That is incredibly important. And yeah, retreat's basically meant to save Ahri, and in some instances, if you really want to, you can just pop back a Thousand-Tailed Watcher into our hand. It is a tech card we only run 1 of, and that's pretty much all you need, except for in the Mirror matchup, it's actually really important to run another one, or in a Kaisa matchup that is like super aggressive with spell removal, and or the Jinx matchup where we just need to pull things more often to our hand. And honestly, the recycled rune from it is, helps us ramp a little bit. So a lot of people think it's a downside, but if you get like really cool like play effects, right, with the Blitzcrank and or the Thousand-Tailed Watcher, sometimes popping like something like that to your hand, extremely crucial. Charms, we are only running 2 of. It fits in perfectly. 2 is all you need. 3 is way too much. You could use this in 2 ways. Obviously pulling things in, making your opponent the attacker. Obviously triggers our champion unit, right, and also our legend unit, so that forces them down. Especially with those like Jinx matchups, you kind of want to like really use this effectively, because you don't want to have them build up like a big base and move in with a bunch of units, because that actually really hurts us, and we actually struggle with that. So picking things off one by one with Charm, even though we only run 2 of, or just like pushing something off of a battlefield and trying to get a foothold on it is also really important. So we could use it offensively and we could use it defensively, whatever the situation calls for. The Stalwart Poro, the Mighty Poro, yeah, it's just really good. It's just a solid target for disciplines, a solid target for on guards. Shield, and plus, with the legend ability -1 something we get, and this also in Trifaran War Camp is mighty, is like really good, so it gets up to 4, right, and then we minus things with our legend ability. It's really hard for them to get actually over the Poro. I kind of like it better than the Master Yi thing, honestly, because just the fact that you minus something, it gets things like Fiora. Fiora doesn't become mighty anymore with the buff and everything, so really important. Ravenbloom Student, best 2 blue drop in the game, 2/2. We all know what it does. When you play a spell, give me +1 this turn. Like I said before, the fact that, with an on guard becomes a +5, 5 might unit. Same thing with Discipline. Discipline, obviously, we get to draw a card. Really solid. If you can get this in your opening hand early game, then perfect, right? It's extremely strong. It scales very well, and there's so many different things that you could do with it. This plus a smoke screen is extremely powerful. Minusing 4 things and then getting +1 on the Ravenbloom Student. And don't forget that we are getting -5 up to a potential -7 with our Inquisitive. This shuts down the Darius Cleave combo, which is incredibly strong. So yeah, super important, really, really good. Moving on to the disciplines, obviously, best buff spell in the game, in my opinion. reaction speed +2, and you get to draw a card. Extremely strong. Helps us defend, helps us get a foothold onto some battlefields in order to score as many points as possible before they pop off with their stuff to where we become a little bit of a threat. Now, tech card. Just hear me out on this, guys. Rune Prison, extremely useful. We only run a 1 of, but this card is so relevant against things like Watcher, against things like a Kaisa, against things like a Darius Cleave, anything that comes into a battlefield that you just know you're going to lose the showdown. This is why this is in it, because it just goes back to their base, right? Extremely useful. I can't tell you how many times this card, even just the 1 of copy, has helped me win games. Super useful in this deck. It's funny because generally it's meant for like the Leona deck, obviously, but sometimes like it really shines in Ahri, honestly. Like I was really considering running 2 of, but there was just no space for it. And the way I've like built this deck, like it's just really very like well thought out to where you just need the 1 of, right? If you're at 5-6 points, right, them pushing back on or their unit getting pushed back to their base because of Rune Prison really slows them down. Trust me, like especially a Watcher, right? Because as soon as Watcher comes down accelerated, you're like, okay, it pretty much like just conquers a battlefield. But if you can force them back into base with this, just forget that showdown. All in all, extremely strong, right? So trust me on this. Put this in, put a 1 of at least, right? Maybe some more in the sideboard, but this card will help you out, and it will help you win some games in certain situations. Furthermore, Smokescreen. We are a deck concentrated on lowering our opponent's might, so we run 2 of Smokescreen. 2 energy, 1 power, reaction speed. Give a unit -4 this turn. Insane. So -4. If you have an Ahri, you know, like I said before, that's -6 plus the legend ability, -7. Really strong. Yeah, so we want to hold as much as possible, and you're probably thinking to ourselves or to yourselves like, okay, that's a lot of spells to be playing on your opponent's turn. Like, how do we actually like get there, right? How do we play our units then? So I'm gonna skip a little ahead. Sona, guys, a 1 of Sona also has helped me win like so many games. The fact that it just sits there and your opponent has to choose, especially with an Ahri onto the battlefield with this, they have to choose which one to remove if they're running any spell damage removal. And the fact that it pays for itself. Like, yeah, you do have to recycle one, but readying 4 runes at the end of your turn is so strong because it gives us access to our smoke screens. It gives us access to our rune prisons, to our disciplines, you know, to our stupefies, defies, unguards. It gives us access to everything, even the find your setter, you know, and also a wind wall. You know, like it's so good. Sona is so busted. I'm really surprised not a lot of people don't actually run Sona. In my opinion, it's extremely strong. Yes, of course, it is sitting at 4 might. Yes, you do have to recycle, but the effect is just so strong. It does become like a hot target, but hey, listen, if they will really want to put in so much removal to killing Sona, even with our wind walls and our defies, then by all means, let them do it, you know. That means the other units are just safer from that removal that they use to kill Sona. Going a little back, Clockwork Keeper. Extremely useful, guys. Extremely useful. Honestly, a 2 for 2 is great, you know, in the beginning of the game, but also it doesn't lose value near the end of the game, right? If you're suffering from a low hand size, popping a power to draw a card is extremely useful. And generally, like, we curve out extremely well, right? So if you're in a situation where you're low in card size or you're looking for outs and you have a couple Clockwork Keepers, then by all means recycle those runes and draw those cards and get that out that you need to kind of like take back the game, gain some tempo, or even win the game. You know, like in many situations I've Clockwork Keepered, paid the rune, and drawn a Thousand-Tailed Watcher or Singularity to kind of like win the game from there. So, you know, card draw is king. Like I said before, it is so extremely important. And moving on to card draw, obviously a 3 of Yordle, like a 3 for 2 with tank helps mitigate damage, and it has a play effect where you get to draw a card. It's so good. You know, if you're going second, this turn, you know, this your first turn is so strong, and the tank makes a huge difference with our legend ability, right? Because it really kind of makes things awkward, break points, especially if we have things like if it's paired with a Raven Bloom or paired with our Ahri. Yeah, it just makes things really weird that they have to kind of like either buff their units or, you know, shift around how they're going to actually use their spell damage in order to like win that showdown. So moving forward, find your center. Guys, this card's really good. It's just good. You know, even if you don't want to play a unit, right, depending on the certain matchups, right, even going second on your first turn, you can just play a find your center and ramp and draw a card. That's fine. And also, like, the fact that you can play this as an action, right, works incredibly well with Sona, right? So we ready our runes. Even if your opponent's not sitting at 5, paying the 3 is absolutely fine. And we still have access to a Defy as well on top of that, right? If we're only sitting at 4 runes for some reason. So yeah, find your center, really good just to kind of like dig into our deck, ramp a little bit up. We kind of want to get ahead of Kaisa in terms of in that matchup, right? So we can drop our Watcher first, because that's extremely strong. And yeah, just, you know, running a 2 of Find Your Setter is solid, right? I really like this card. And if your opponent's sitting at 5 points, right, with no Aspirant's Climb as one of the battlefields, 1, draw 1, and Channel of Rune Exhausted is extremely, extremely good. Wind Wall. We run 1 Wind Wall for 1 card, and it's pretty much like anything like Singularity or Ichthian Rain, like punishing the Kaisa by hitting a Wind Wall or something really ridiculous like Unchecked Power is strong, because Unchecked Power is like one of those cards that there's really nothing we can do about. So that's why Wind Wall is here, because we do hold often when it comes to our how we score points. That doesn't necessarily mean you should only be like holding. By all means, like if you see something happening, sometimes moving back out to your base is the right decision, right? But Wind Wall, you know, counters anything in the game. Even it can only be Wind Walled as well, or Mystic Reversal, really. But no one generally runs Mystic Reversal. That's not something we really have to care about or worry about. But essentially, there for those big spell removals like Unchecked Power, like Singularity, or the Ichthian Rain. Even so, in some situations, even though we would be losing some resources, Falling Star, if you really need to Wind Wall Falling Star because like it's dependent on winning the game or not, or if it's just like we're losing too much tempo because of those 2 units and what they bring to us, then by all means use Wind Wall. We're only running a 1 of, so use it sparingly. But generally, Wind Wall is extremely strong, and it really like hurts our opponent a lot. So we talked about Sona. That is a tech card we put in just because it's so good. I really like it. It's done a lot of things for me. And another tech card is the Blitzcrank in passive. Now, a lot of people don't actually play Blitzcrank. I think it's extremely strong, right? 5 energy, 1 power, tank, right? So, you know, when it is pulling something in, right, it has to be dealt damage first. So sometimes your opponent's just like, okay, I don't want to move into the battlefield with Ahri, with the blue Ahri, right? Force them into if you don't have the charms, right? Because when you play Blitzcrank to a battlefield, you may move an enemy unit to here. When I hold, return me to my owner's hand. So it's something you can keep playing over and over and over again, just as long as it doesn't get removed. Extremely annoying. Extremely annoying for our opponent. Yeah, this hurts them a lot. It hurts a lot. This is really good against Jinx as well, because generally that Darius is easily to get rid of with this. Yes, we do trade. However, if they've played a second card in that on our turn, which is like possible, right? Because as they're being pulled in, you know, they can play you know, they can play a Hextech Ray and or a Cleave, right? As long as they play 2 cards, it goes to 7 because of our legend ability that Darius goes down to 6, and they do trade, and generally the other unit on that battlefield will be okay. Yes, we do have to have a unit on the battlefield for this to actually like be good. However, that's what we do. That is the name. That is the game plan, right? We are holding and we are manipulating our opponent's board to try to like thin out their army, basically, you know, especially if they're like gaining too many points by holding on the other one. Sometimes thinning down the units on the other battlefield, if you know, I have 1 and they have 1, it really helps, right? So we can just move into the other battlefield with something like a Watcher, or target it down with something like a Singularity, which we also run 1 of. Good removal. You know, sometimes like this card is really, really good against the set matchup, just because if they have too many buffed units, right, we can kind of choose which dies first, and then they trigger their legend ability, right? So only 1 actually gets recalled. This is why it's in there for that specific matchup. Also, just anything big and annoying, or just like if they have too many stuff on their base. Really good at removing like the bulk of units. But generally, I play this just because there's some set players where I play at. And this really hurts that legend ability for it. So, and honestly, just solid removal. Yes, it is a little expensive, however, extremely useful. And like I said, this deck list is like incredibly well thought out, just to kind of hit all those spots of like how to counteract certain decks. So I know it's only one of, but definitely put it in because it is extremely useful. Next, the best card in the game. I'm sorry, guys. Like, we have to go all out. This is the Summoner's Skirmish, right? Thousand Tail Watcher, best card in the game easily. It blankets, your opponent's field by -3 and everything. That is our game plan. Reduce the might of our opponent as much as possible to where it's not a threat anymore. Everybody knows this card. You've all played against this card. Hopefully, you've played with it. Yes, of course. If you're gonna construct this deck list like individually, this is probably the one card that you're just going to spend the most money off. Hopefully you guys have pulled them already, but 7 energy, 1 power, accelerate for basically 8 and 2. And when you play me, give enemy units -3 this turn to a minute of 1. It is one of the strongest play effects in the game, if not the strongest. I think it's the strongest card in the game, honestly. And it's such a threat, right? It takes back boards, or it takes back battlefields, right? Even if there's a situation where you can't accelerate it, just playing it to -3 things and then moving in with other units is also very good. Or you can charm something into a battlefield after it's being -3. So essentially everything's being hit down with a smoke screen. If you're using that in that regard, where you play a Watcher, right, non-accelerated, using a charm because of our legend ability, it's basically smoke screening things left and right. So really strong card. It's an easy 3 of. The thing is, you have to time this perfectly, right? You don't want to just play it to a battlefield just to put some might onto it. Use it as a comeback card. That's basically what it is for. That's the purpose of it, right? The purpose is to take back a battlefield that has been conquered, and this card does that extremely well. The last card in our main deck is the Tasty Fey Folk. I love this card. I wish I could fit more of them in here. However, the one is fine, just because of our curve, right? That's the reason this is in the deck. Like, to the mid to late game, if we're lacking on units, because generally our might is extremely low, right? Like we do have Ravenbloom that gets bigger, right? But 2 might, 4 might, and 5 might, and Watcher is usually a comeback card. So and also just the curve is really good. Like, clean 7 energy for 6 might is good. You can accelerate if you want to. And the Death Knell is extremely strong. Channeling 2 runes and drawing a card. Really good to set up for something like a Thousand Tail Watcher, or to set up something for a Wind Wall, where you could play much more, you can play a lot more cards. I was trying to fit 2 in there. Like, arguably, you could either get rid of the Sona or the Blitzcrank, but honestly, guys, like, Sona and Blitzcrank have done work for me, and it just checks off so many boxes by just having like these one-ofs in the deck to where you draw them, because we do have a lot of draw power in this deck. It really helps out just to have, instead of focusing down on 3 of this, 3 of this, 3 of this, 3 of this, thin out the deck a little bit in terms of copies, right? And kind of make it more widespread, so you're really good against those matchups. You're better off for a wide spread of matchups instead of just those couple matchups against a Master E or something. Because I think that's what Jinx actually lacks in. Jinx actually has a really good matchup spread in terms of fighting all the legends. However, right, they have to build it accustomed just to be Kaisa, and then they lose in those other matchups for all the if they're just building it just to beat Kaisa. But that is the main deck. Now, the most important thing is actually the sideboard, and we actually have a pretty strong sideboard. And I'll go through it one by one. So in those instances where we play against Kaisa, we run another retreat. I like to take that out for the find your center, right? Because of all the target down spell removal, right? We want to save that Ahri as much as possible. And then wasting cards like Falling Star or Hextech Ray or even Void Seeker is really good for us, right? Because as soon as they're in the trash, they have nothing to recycle things in. Another Wind Wall, which we will replace with the Singularity, if we go against some like hyper control, like lots of spell Teemo stuff, right? Just because like unchecked power is a thing Teemo runs, singularity is a thing Teemo runs, and Teemo is a really good like a tough matchup for us as well. But honestly, like the deck list like works really well, especially with Blitzcrank, because it pulls things over from the like battlefields where they have stuff hidden, so they have to play it. And also Charms really hurts Teemo as well. We're running 2 Adaptatrons, which we replace for our one Blitzcrank, I'm sorry, and 1 Lecturing Yordle, right? That is for the Aurora matchup against Master Yi. You know, this is like pretty much like or a really good like gear removal. Yes, we do have to conquer, but that's really easy if we have things like charm, right? Just push them out, conquer, destroy the battlefield. Because the thing is, like, Master Yi only has 1 unit at a battlefield at a time, so pushing it out with like a charm and then moving in with an Adaptatron to destroy the Dazzling Aurora, really good, strong combo. For the aggressive matchup, we are playing 2 Sprite Mothers in this sideboard, which will be replaced by the the 2 Clockwork Keepers, right? So we take out. I know that that's awkward in terms of curve, but these things like Lecturing Yordle, Sona, Watchers, TC Feyfolk, and Blitzcrank just really help us out in those aggressive matchups against something like a Jinx. This really hurts because, you know, the Sprite actually trades with the Flame Chompers, right? Merchant, it kills a merchant because they generally like are very aggressive, moving very fast to the deck or to the battlefields. So this counteracts and kind of slows their tempo down really well. Next, for the mirror matchup, we have another chosen champion. So if you are going against Ahri, right, and this actually helps really well against Jinx as well, because they're being aggressive, they're trying to move in and outscore some points. In the mirror matchup, sideboard your chosen champion, because that's something you can do for the Ahri alluring. Like, it's really good because we just want to counteract those points, right? So if we're buckling down on a battlefield, scoring 2 points, like not wasting, but like spending our time trying to protect it as much as possible with retreats, rune prisons, and disciplines, we'll get ahead on the Ahri, because generally whoever's going to win the mirror matchup when it comes to Ahri is the one who goes into a battlefield first. That's it, you know. So if you're in the unfortunate position where you are going second and they move into a battlefield and they're just holding, the only way to counteract that is like if we get into the other battlefield with our green Ahri and Ahri alluring, scoring the extra point, getting a little bit ahead, making them use all their spells, defying them down. That is the game plan for the mirror matchup. And we are also running 1 singularity more. Generally against the Victor matchups, because, you know, it's an awkward thing, but like I know it's better just to have that extra damage on something like that. Grand Stratagem is a problem, you know, because they can play it as an action, you know, so targeting stuff down, especially their leader, right? Targeting down their Heimerdingers, right? Basically, you would just put this in, replacing, you could do anything, really. You could replace it with the smoke screen. You can even replace it with Tasty Feyfolk, but it's just for decks that, like, again, like if set is being a problem, putting in the strong removal really, really, really helps out. But yeah, that is it, guys. Trust me, like if you're an Ahri player, definitely try it out, guys. Test play it before you actually bring it to your Summoner Skirmish, because I would feel really bad if you're having trouble navigating the deck. But I'm telling you, I've done so many iterations of Ahri, and I feel like this is the best deck that I can think of. And the fact that I just navigated it so well, I have really good win rates with it. I just wanted to share it for with all those Ahri players out there, something to consider. But before we end the video, registration. All right, so remember, you guys have to register your decks for the Summoner Skirmish, right? So if your LGSs are asking for the registration sheets, make sure you have them. Make sure you call ahead of time. Some probably won't even care, honestly, but you know, it is important. Generally, they're supposed to. They're supposed to ask for registration sheets, right? I don't know if they send that to Riot or UVS Games, but hey, listen, Piltover Archive has it already. So this is the deck list here, right? And once you've constructed your deck list, whatever deck you're bringing, doesn't have to be Ahri. All you have to do is hit export, right? And on the very bottom, it says export registration sheet. You basically click that and you just fill out everything. So obviously, we'll go through it. A deck is, the name of your deck from Piltover Archive. The designer will be your username for Piltover Archive. Then you just put your first and last name, your Riot ID, which you'll find actually, like, if you go to events, then there will be this little gamer tag here, right? I'll show you right now. So I'm just like by the Riot Games website, right, for events, and I just looked at my profile info, and it should be here. Like mine is JK Trollkey, number 8011. You copy that, you put it into the Riot ID. Then you have to pick the date that you're going for that registration, so make sure you know when you're going. The event name will be obviously Summoner Skirmish, so you just put in Summoner Skirmish. The event location, which you should know because that's where you're going, and your chosen champion, which I think it automatically loads. And after all that, as soon as you hit generate, then you have this very, very cool, very official looking, shout out Piltover Archive, look at you guys go, deck registration sheet. So it'll say... I didn't put in the date for this, but, the event name, the deck name, well, this is just Summoner Skirmish for some reason, but, your legend, it'll say the names of your battlefields, your main deck, and most importantly, your sideboard, right? Also, sometimes good to check on your opponent, right? Like if your opponent is like being a little shady, like switching cards around during the middle of the game, that's something that they're not allowed to do. Your registered deck is your registered deck, and you cannot switch it up after that. So no adding after you've traded with your friends and stuff like that. But yeah, so awesome little tool, that Piltover Archive. It is for free. Just, something to keep in mind. Don't forget to register your deck. So that is it for me, guys. Hopefully for you Ahri players out there, this deck list will help you out at your Summer Skirmish. I've had a lot of luck with it. It's just really, really good. I really like the deck. It is cohesive, and I just really think it's like one of the better Ahri builds that approaches the matchup spread like very, very well. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate your support, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.